Welcome back to another AQ video, guys. I'm Grace, or Gibby, whichever you prefer. And today I've got a very special, well, I think special video, and it's going to be showcasing all of the gear that is relevant and pretty good that you can get without doing any quests. So to be clear, this is all the gear you can get in a shop, just going on the map somewhere, going to that shop and buying the stuff. So you don't have to kill any monsters if you're struggling to kill monsters. All of these shops will have accessible gear that you'll be able to get to upgrade your inventory without doing any quests. So, we're going to start off today with Chili's shop in Frostvale. Relatively obscure, most people know about it. It only has a few things of note. It's got a earth and fire swappable ranged spear. It's got a ice melee weapon, the Chill Ripper. I used this one as a kid. It's got a couple of other weapons that are only available at some tiers. The one good one is the Ice 100 proc ranged weapon. It's available at some tiers, cost token at some tiers, it's unfortunate. For armors, it has some random ice armors, not very good. What it does have is Tyrannosaurus Rex, very good armor, has a very good weapon-based skill. Fire armor, obviously, with a darkness secondary resist, I believe. Yes, darkness and wind tertiary resists. At 150, they are 50%. So they're pretty good secondary resist. As for shields, it has a quadruple compression shield. Not very good. You might want it. As for spells, it does have some very useful spells. If we're going to max level, we have Breath of the Ice Lord, which is just a simple ice spell. If you're at lower levels, there is a very useful spell for any bosses with damage caps. I'm thinking mostly of the H series boss, because it has a low damage cap. Avalanche attack has 13 hits, so it's very good at circumventing damage caps at low level. It only scales to level 65 though. The other spells that are relevant are the Call Poutine Golem. It calls a pretty good fire guest. It does a little bit less damage because it tries to entangle, but it's okay. It costs SP to use. And then there's also Syrup Surge. It's a water spell. That's all it does. Everything else in the spell shop is irrelevant. The last thing, these pets are all irrelevant except the Ice Cat, but there's a much easier place to get the Ice Cat, which we'll go to later. So the next shop we're going to go to only has one item, but since it is such a good item, I figured I would make a little clip showing how to get it. And that is the Falerin's Tome at the Falerin's Memorial. And when I say Falerin's Tome, what I mean is Lore Master's Tome. It is a simple tome which has an ice spell, an earth spell, and a harm spell compressed in it, as well as a draw mana ability. So this is very useful for early game mages and late game mages if you just want some spell compression. It's not got the best of anything, but it's got perfectly okay spells for 3 elements. Next, we're going to go check out Hollow's Garage. Oh, misclick. We're going to go check out Hollow's Garage. Now, Hollow's Garage is found on Mount Thrall on the travel map, and then obviously Hollow's Garage. And he has a little bit of dialogue. You have to click what are you building in here, click through his text options, then visit Hollow's shop. Now, items of note. There's nothing too crazy. But what there is you see these weather emotes. They each compress 2 elements, and they're ranged 100 proc weapons. So Typhoon is water and wind, Blizzard is ice and wind, and Thunderstorm is energy and water. And then he also has the number 9, which is an ice melee weapon, and the Whammer. Don't know how to pronounce that, but don't think it really matters, which is a wind melee weapon. And these items all scale to level 150. And finally, he has these pets, which also scale to 150, but they are very old pets. So they have a charisma requirement, so I don't recommend them because they're understated and whatnot. Next, I'm going to take you to Adder's shop, which is in the Rip in the Sky. And Adder's shop is on the back right, and he's pretty easy to get to his shop. He doesn't have any complicated dialogue like a couple of the other NPCs. Simply, what do you have for sale? Now, what he does have for sale, to be honest, is mostly kind of ass. The only weapon he has that's any real good is the Rainbow Ray Gun. which has both a magic and a ranged mode. It's 100 proc, and you can use it to randomize the enemy's defenses. It does have a save, it's not guaranteed, but still very good all the same. His armor is a Earth, Energy, and Light triple compression armor. It's fully defensive, in case you like that, but the triple compression is the real selling point. This is especially good because it's triple compression. You can buy one armor and save some money if you're at a high level. Say you just hit level 150, you don't want to buy 3 armors, you can buy 1 instead, save a lot of money. Now for his shields, most of these are pretty bad, but they all do scale to level 150. The only shields that are any good, for most people, are the Ironthorn shield, which boosts your strength, and the Shield of Agony's Blood, which is a dodge-based shield. It makes the monster less accurate, but it does make them do more damage. So the accuracy and damage balance each other out. Lower accuracy, higher damage. Finally, he has a simple Summoning Dark Guest spell, which costs MP and has several hits. I'm also going to show you how to leave the Rip in the Sky in case some of you are less experienced here. I'll show Vance's shop later in the video because it's a sub 150 shop. But what you do, you just click as I did, and you take the toilet down to Yulgar's Inn. There we go. So now I'm going to take you to I'm going to demonstrate what is useful in the Haven, also known as the Neko shops. Neko, Haven, whatever, it's the same thing. This guy has a bunch of dialogue. You should go through it sometime if you're new to the game. It's fun. But we're just going to click on the town center here. This is where you become a Neko. If you don't have a sub race, doing this is a good option because it has some other gear options. But in case you do have a sub race, I'm not going to cover those. This is only completely accessible gear for anyone on any account. So this is the weapon shop. I'm going to show the basic shop. What he has is he has a melee weapon for energy, ice, fire, water, and earth, and he has a ranged weapon for earth, light, and wind. Most of these are pretty bad, they just do normal damage. The 100 proc weapons, they're okay if you know what you're doing. If you're not a practiced player, probably don't use them, just use something else instead. One weapon that I will cite that's actually pretty good for all accounts, or all melee-based accounts, is the Guitar of Earth because it does damage to enemy SP. Only a little bit of damage, but if you can help the boss get like 1 or 2 less special attacks in a fight, it can make a difference. He also has wind and energy shields that give you resistance to random statuses. Not very important. Now, the other Neko shops are all in the same town. Here we've got the Healing Neko shop, and there are some things you have to do a quest to unlock. This is not one of them. Again, I'm on a level 25. I haven't done any of the quests on this account. I'm just going to go show the basic medicine. And he has 4 spells of all levels. They go up to level 150. Most of them are pretty bad. And by most of them, I mean Thorns and Entangling Vines. They're outdated. They're not good anymore. Seeds of Restoration. It's a charisma-based healing spell that costs SP. If that sounds good for your build, go for it. Allergic Reaction is a charisma-based SP spell that does wind damage and has a strong blind. It's a very good blind spell. If that interests you, pick it up. And the miscs are pretty good as well. Liquid Courage is an accessible dark multiplicative defensive misc. So at max level, it cuts dark damage in half by 50%, or it cuts dark damage in half. At low levels, it goes from like 80% to 60% or something like that. But it's good defensive misc. Cat Scratch Fever is simply a weapon boosting misc for claw and fist type weaponry. So all of the guitars that I showed you in the weapon shop, those are all claws. Simply a damage boost misc. Useful, not amazing, but useful. And finally, we have the pet shop. The Super Neko shop is only available to donating accounts. The basic shop and advanced shop are all you need. And it simply has an earth pet, and then it also has, a light earth pet and a dark water pet. And the way these pets work is they have 5 attacks, and each time they pick a random attack, And sometimes it's only light damage or only dark damage, and sometimes it's only earth damage or only water damage, and sometimes it is a combination of both. They're okay. They do slightly extra damage because they have 2 elements. I wouldn't use them in most circumstances. I would simply get one of the normal pets that I will show later on in the video. So now we're back in Battlon, and I'm going to show you what all of the shops around here are good for. So starting with the Zard Hunter Shop, to be honest, until you do the quests, there's really not too much that's good in here, and the quests are nice, but you don't need to do them or anything. The only things I will mention is that he has a couple of low-level ranged 100 proc weapons. If any of these look fun to you, I personally like the fishhook blade the way it looks because it's really retro, and the boomerang. I used to play with a boomerang as a kid. Love those things. But again, they're not very good unless you're very low level. And then his armor's very bad, don't bother. And the only thing that he does have that's good, that scales to level 150 without doing any quests, is the Zard shield, just a simple earth shield, and the Sackleberry buckler. Now this is a earth light dual element shield with also secondary energy and fire resists. Could come in handy, could save you some money. You can only buy 1 shield instead of 2. I wouldn't recommend that unless you're fighting something that attacks with both earth and light at the same time. Now his last good thing is the Zard and Bulbazard, because they are earth and energy pets that scale to 150, and the Zard actually has a paralyzed toggle, which is pretty good for free to play and an accessible item. If you're fighting something that has a boss that has a window to stun it so that it doesn't do a special attack. An example is Bun Banneret, the new Akraloth pet in the anniversary event, etc. Those types of bosses. Zard is a good option. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It's an energy pet with a paralyzed toggle. Now, obviously, the Zard shop is a pretty bad shop in Battlon. So here I'm going to take you to the pet shop. And now Aria has 2 shops. You see Vampragons and Bipeds. Vampragons, simply a shop full of Vampragons. Now what these do is they restore health or mana if you're below half of health or mana, but they also do pure damage if you're above half health and mana. They're mostly gap filler pets because they're a little bit worse than a pure damage pet most of the time, but they're good enough, you know? And they come at almost every level bracket. If you're a Guardian, they come every 10 levels, every 15 levels. If you're an Adventurer, they come every 15 or 20 levels. Very useful to fill any slots you don't have. Now, she has some random stuff in her Buy Pets store, so her main shop. Like if you look here, all these weapons are kind of ass, to be honest. A couple of them have niche uses. If you're not an experienced player doing something weird, don't worry about them. They're all pretty bad. I wouldn't buy them unless you think they look cool. Her armors are all pretty bad. If you happen to be between level 70 and level 90, the golds and a Guardian, the gold Cyber Rex Rider armor is actually pretty good. It has a weapon-based skill, but again, it's only available for golds until for like a small level range, and the Z token armor definitely not worth it and doesn't scale to level 150. As for shields, don't buy the Chameleon shield, it's bad. Spells, don't buy these, they're bad. And the pets, so she has a lot of good pets, and as you can see, many of them scale to level 150. But the thing is, it's a little difficult to like explain exactly, but some of the pets are on the old standard, which means sometimes they won't attack. And the way to kind of tell is basically just to look at them and see if they look old or have a really old description. So like the bunny rabbit, look how ugly that guy is. He's on an old standard of pet, you shouldn't use him. The gizzard, he looks weird. He's on an old standard of pet, you shouldn't use him. Same with undead puppy. But if you look at ice cat, modern looking pet, he's on the new standard of pets, you can use him. Retro Zard, he's meant to look old and ugly, he has retro in the name. Same with Retro Trouble, you can use them, they're on the new standard. Yeah, so if you're not sure if a pet is on old standard or new standard, just look it up in the info subs, and then you can find out very easily. But yeah, she has lots of good pet options. Very useful shop. So the inn with Yulgar's shop and the mage shop and the archery shop are the 3 really good shops in Battleon. And Battleon being the main town. Because they just have tons and tons of gear. They also have lots of quests, but for here I'm just talking about the accessible gear that anyone can buy at any time. So I'm going to show you the basic shop. She has a ton of random ranged weapons. I'm going to scroll through them. Like you can see, there's just a ton of stuff. Lots of elements, lots of level brackets, very useful. Her advanced shop scales up to level 150. For armors, don't worry about these unless you're doing something quirky. The Horse Rider armor has 70 Earth resist, so if you're struggling against an Earth boss and you're really low level, feel free to buy it, but notice it has 200 fire resist. Like, you don't want to use this armor in general. So again, just skip these armors unless you like have a specific plan and know what you're doing. The shields, they're all kind of bad. Don't bother with them. The misks, ignore the 7-leaf clover. It's kind of bad. The Spearmaster emblem, Bowmaster emblem, and Poison Arrow Vial are all damage boosting misks. Bow boosts bow damage, spear boosts spear damage, and like halberd damage, stuff like that. The Poison Arrow Vial works a little bit differently. It gives you a chance to poison, and then if the monster is already poisoned, you do extra damage. And it only works for bows and crossbows. Very niche, very sort of weird and quirky. If you like poison for some reason, or if you use poison in other parts of your build, feel free to pick it up. The advanced shop, very similar, but she has no armors for sale. And again, as I showed, actually I should mention this, the Sublime Tower shield is a good dual element shield for wind and energy. But aside from that, nothing too special in this shop, just more of the same, lots of ranged weapons. Now I'm going to show Warlic's shop. Warlic has a ton of stuff, and I think that mages are the best build for the early game, so a lot of your stuff might come from him, which is very useful. As for weapons, sort of like Robina and sort of like Yulgar, he just has tons of stuff, tons of random weapons. A lot of them are really old, a lot of them are really new. Most of them do pretty much the same damage as their level. Obviously, the level 30 weapons do more than the level 10 weapons, but all the weapons are pretty much standard. As for armors, there's a bunch of random stuff in here, like Invisibility Cloak. As you can see, you turn invisible, Earth Power, you look really strange. The only one you should really buy, because the other ones have bad numbers, because they're really old, so the numbers are just lower, is Demonic or Devilish. And Devilish is just a different version of Demonic look. Darkness and Fire. Darkness and Fire. Same armor, different name. And it's a... And as I meant to say this at the beginning, Demonic is a Fire Dark Compression armor, so it's pretty useful. All his shields, some of them are okay. I would just buy shields from Yulgar, because these ones are kind of annoying. And I say that, I'm actually lying. The only shield you should buy from him is Demon Spirit Prison, because it is a Darkness Fire Compression armor, and combined with Demonic, that Fire Darkness Compression armor, you have a armor and a shield that do fire and darkness defense in one. So that's very useful, because if you're a new account, obviously you have your no drop, so your cloth armor is not elemental, so it won't be that useful. So if you combine dark and fire into one inventory slot for both your armor and your shield, you can still have full elemental coverage in your inventory. If that didn't make sense to you, just buy Demonic and just buy Demon Soul Prison, because they're good. Spells, Warlic has pretty much everything. As you can see, lots and lots of spells. They scale up to level 150 in his advanced shop. Pets, don't really buy any of these. They're all pretty bad. Misks, he's got wand damage boosting, staff damage boosting, and Infernal Djinn Lamp. This summons a fire and darkness guest, and they ally seek. So whichever is weaker, it'll attack with that element, and they cost mana. So good for mages, good for beast mages. Good to know about. Now finally we have Yulgar's shop. I've kind of been going for a minute here. So excuse me, my monologuing has gotten slower. But Yulgar has two shops. He's got his memorial shop and his shopping shops. I'm going to go over the memorial shop first because it is much smaller, easier to go through. Most of these shields are okay. He's got an okay light shield, an okay fire shield. The memorial shield is quite useful. It is a dark fire compression shield. So as you can see, or sorry, not compression, dual element. So it defends against both dark and fire at the same time. Sort of like the Demon Soul Prism that we just went over in Yulgar's shop. Both of these other shields, the Duke's Dawn Typology and the Learning to Fly, have minor effects. They're a little bit useful. They're not great. They're okay. Feel free to buy them. Feel free not to buy them. And just buy a normal shield. As for spells, is a lot of random spells. The ones that are pretty good are Purple Rain, which is a reset spell. So if you cast it, wait a couple turns, cast it again, you reset your HP, mana, and SP, which you can use to stack some buffs or stack some statuses. I don't recommend using it until you have a very defined build. Yeah. Moonwalker's Grace is a mana spell that boosts your dexterity. It's good for rangers. It does cost mana, so that's kind of unfortunate, but you can make it work with a Intelligence Misc or an Intelligence Shield to boost your mana temporarily, then cast the spell. Yep, so that's his spells. His pets, Balloony Fighter, to my knowledge, is just a normal light pet. Kurgween Bow, however, is a dark pet that reduces your incoming damage based off of their dark resist by using an Ellie shield. So if you are fighting a light monster, you'll reduce damage by a lot. If you're fighting a dark monster, you reduce damage only by a little bit. But this is a very good defensive pet, and I would say if you're only going to buy one pet and use it because you're like too lazy to switch between them, buy this pet. It's very good. He has a dodge misc, so this misc just increases all of your defenses by like 7 or 8. Useful for dodge builds, not good at a low level, but just trust me on that, I've done the numbers. Hair Muffs is a defensive misc for energy, so it reduces energy damage, and it also makes enemy attacks less accurate, but do more damage. You might be thinking, oh, but it makes them do more damage, so why would I want to use it? Even if they don't miss any of their attacks, and even if they do hit for their extra damage, the energy damage reduction still reduces the damage overall. So Hair Muffs, very good for any energy monster fighting, very good against, say, the H-Series quest boss. That's pretty much all to show in his memorial shop. So now we'll get into his normal shop. So as you can see, you click beginner, intermediate, or advanced for levels 1 to 50, 50 to 100, and 100 to 150. I'm going to just show the beginner shop, and he has a weapons, armor, and shields shop. Now the weapons, as you can see, tons and tons of weapons. Doesn't really matter what you do, they'll all do about the same damage. Some of them are old and have wacky specials. Doesn't really matter at a low level, do about the same damage. Armors. So this is why Yulgar's shop is elite for new players and returning players. So let's say you have level 70 gear and you're level 90, and since all the monsters got buffed because you haven't played in several years, you're getting wiped by monsters. If you're in like your dark armor, you still take a lot of damage from darkness monsters. Yulgar solves that problem, because if you look, he has fire, water, wind, ice, earth, blah 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 blah. All of the armors, all of the elements of armor. He also has the demonic armor, and he's the same as Warlic in this sense. He has the demonic armor, which is a fire, darkness, compression armor. And he also has the Avenger, which is a fire and light compression armor. So depending on which armor fits in better, you can use those. Stick to the armors that have like normal names. So like Radiant Plate, Voltaic Plate. Don't get, for example, Souled Armor, Breakneck Robe, Razor Plate. All of these armors are old, weird, and have weaker numbers. So just don't use them. Again, unless you know exactly what you're doing. Same with Dragon Scale, Stone, Aqua. Don't use those. They're old, and they do about half damage. The only bad thing about Yulgar's shop is that, as you can see, a lot of the tiers are Guardian only. So if you're level 35, you'll have to wait until level 50 to get armor upgrades. That's a small price to pay. Retro Golden is quite a good light armor. So whenever you can, I'd say buy that for your light option. unless you are high level and have things like Paladin, etc. But if you're a returning player, need new gear, this is the place to go to get all of your armors for every element. Now, you might be thinking, well, I have all my armors for every element. What am I going to do about my shields? Look no further than Yulgar's shield shop. Just like the armors, he has options for every element at many level scalings. So you might go 10 or 15 levels, and then you'll be able to upgrade your shield. These all scale to 150, by the way. So if you're a higher level player, you can go into his intermediate or his advanced shops and get the same ability of armors and shields. It also has spells. This healing spell, very bad. These misks, 1 boosts sword damage, 1 boosts axe damage. Paladin's Oath summons the Arctic's Guest, which does light damage, is stronger against undead, and can heal you. It's not a great light guest because it costs mana, and if you're a warrior, which you can use it if you're a mage too. It's not a great light guest, but it's something, because there aren't many misc slots you need to use when you're low level. So something to consider, something to use. So that is Yulgar's shop. And now I'm going to take you to the Guardian Tower, so you can look at the Guardian account shop, which is available to all accounts. See, this is an adventure. I'm going to tour the tower. Click on Nimrod and account shop. So these weapons, they're kind of bad, but they scale to level 150, so they're useful. And the spells, both of these spells are actually quite nice. So there's Call Maple Beaver, which gives you a guest, which costs SP, which attacks for either earth or water, whatever the monster has a weaker resist to. So it's good because it seeks between 2 elements. Well, I say good. It's useful because it seeks between 2 elements. Useful for setting up your early game. And Sisters of Mercy, which is a healing spell, which scales with your charisma. And what it also does is give you a 50% Ellie shield for 1 turn. So it halves incoming damage for 1 turn, which is super strong. It does cost a turn. It's not quick cast, but if you're fighting a boss with a nuke, like for example the new Akraloth boss, super useful spell. Would recommend buying this on most accounts when you're coming back to the game. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording and get on a Guardian account so I can show you the Guardian shop. Okay, so here we are on a Guardian account, and I'm going to take you to the Guardian Tower, the Guardian shop through Nimrod. Okay, so sort of like the other shops, this guy has tons of weapons, pretty much every element, lots of levels, a couple of different types, like Blazing Glaive is ranged, RX for destruction is melee, like lots of different weapon types will fit most builds. This stuff isn't great, but it's all passable, it's all modern scaled, almost all of it's modern scaled. So it's all pretty good. As for armors, he has a bunch of random armors at different levels, like Big Red Button, Elemental Fighter, Guardian Soul Armor. Don't buy any of those. The only armor you should really buy in here that's available, that's not Z tokens, is the Radiant Winged Guardian. It's not a great armor, but it is a light armor with a weapon-based skill. And weapon-based skills are pretty good, so feel free to use it. As for shields, he simply has an ice shield with an effect, a dark shield with minor secondary resists, and a earth and darkness dual element shield, so it defends against both at the same time, and all of these scale to level 150. As for spells, the spell scaling is a little bit strange. So it has low level earth, light, and fire spells. So as you can see, low level. But once it gets to higher level, there are only light and energy spells. Lost Stack of Oversoul cards. Don't buy this, it's weird and bad and random. But as you can see, high level light and energy spells, low level light, earth, and fire spells. For pets, he's got a ton of random pets. The ones that I would really recommend are the Fairy Godmother. The Nerf Kitten is pretty nice. The Vampire Bat is a lifesteal pet. Not great, but okay. And then all the other pets are pretty normal. Some of them are weird, like Moggle Habilis. Don't buy this unless you know what you're doing. The clone pets are very bad. Don't buy them unless you know what you're doing. and you're doing something like strange and weird and niche. Nerf Kitten, as I said, Nihilak, pretty good. Supreme Iceware and Fireware, I think they're just normal ice and fire pets. Nothing crazy, but they're all useful. And here is the miscs you can buy. So there's Gemini Pendant, which summons which calls a Earth and Wind guest, seeks between Earth and Wind, and it costs SP. Essence Orb, you click it, you lose HP, and you gain SP. Now, a secret that I don't think many people know is that you can actually transfer Essence Orb to adventure accounts through your shared vault. Like Guardian items, they have gold text. Adventure items, they have white text. I just tested it out earlier. So you can buy Essence Orb on a Guardian, transfer it to an Adventurer, help with your leveling process. If you're only Adventurers on your account, skip this section, obviously. Why are you here? But pretty good stuff in the Guardian shop. To be expected, since it's the Guardian shop. Now, the last couple shops I'm going to show you are all shops that don't scale to 150. So the first one, and the most easy one to find, is Warlic's and Zorbak's Bag of Bones shop. So if you click this bag, you get a little pop-up Zorbak visit, and you can buy his spells. Call Zombie Director. It's simply a dark calling guest. Costs SP. Just normal. Nothing special. Bag of Bones is a weird spell, but it's a little bit overstated for the level. It only comes at level 25 and level 50, but I'm going to show you exactly what it does. Here we go. Bag of Bones. I would recommend using this at a low level because the damage numbers are kind of higher than they're supposed to be. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I think the spell was made like before half of my viewer base is born. But the spells do higher damage at lower levels than they should compared to their other spells. So this is the menu you get when you cast a spell. There's technically an optimal spell to do. It's kind of annoying to remember. When you're casting the spell, just click the horse head, the moglin head, the human head, and the dragon head. Doesn't matter which order you click them in, just click those four, and then click create your monster, and it does a 3-hit darkness spell. That's the spell. There are other versions. Look it up on the wiki if you want to, or on the forums if you want to use the other ones. It's kind of a fun spell. It's kind of cool, kind of different, so I recommend it to have a good time. Now to show you some of the other shops. One of them is in Granamore. So you travel to Granamore, and you can do this on an adventurer too. And you click on this lady, who is selling Pearapplos, I believe they're called. Pearapplos, I don't know what they're called, but something like that. Pearapplos or whatever. Who knows? Everything except the weapons in this shop are kind of ass, and none of it scales to level 150. But what is pretty good are these dragon blades, which do extra damage to dragons. And then they also swap dragons' resistances. So fire and ice get swapped, earth and wind get swapped. All of them get swapped with their opposite resist. And when they're attacking a dragon, they attack with the dragon's base element. So an earth dragon, they would attack with earth, swap the resists, and then do extra damage. A fire dragon, they attack with fire, swap the resists, and then do extra damage. They're super weird and quirky, but they do extra damage to dragons, and they're available at low levels. Also, I should have mentioned, they're melee. Valor Point, don't buy it, it's bad. So that is the Pearapplo shop. Now the next shop I'm going to show you is the Crusty Joe's fish shop. And you might be saying, what the hell is the Crusty Joe's fish shop? I've never heard of that in my life. You would not be the only person who has never heard of Crusty Joe's fish shop. It's in the port of Darren. So over here, you go to Darren, you click here. Over here, there's like a random like item component. Don't worry about that. Go to the boat shop and fish shop. Now, he's got some random stuff in here. He's got some Z token weapons, which you should never under any circumstances buy. But he's also got the electrifying eel, which I remember using as a kid. So I have a bias towards it. But it's a melee weapon with a special attack. And then he also has pets. This is the only thing you should come here for. He has a Sea Squirt that scales to 150, or close to 150, and is up to the modern pet standard, so it does full damage, attacks every turn. These other pets, don't buy them. The Flirtle, the Angry Tortoise, the Bloodworm, don't buy them. Just buy the Sea Squirt. Just looking around, back. Now there's one other thing in Darren that you can get to, and a lot of people don't know about this, but you can actually buy low-level versions of the Devourer Saga items in this building. So, I don't know who this dude is, I don't know the lore or whatever, but Devourer Saga items. Here we go. We've got tons of stuff. So basically, he's got a bunch of random weapons, a bunch of random armors. The armors, don't really buy any of them, they're all kind of ass. The shields, don't really buy any of them, they're all kind of ass. And the spells. The spells are actually pretty good. Nightbane's Howl is a dark and wind spell. Keep in mind, if you look at it, it does a scream even when your sound effects are off. Like, look, I have sound effects off, so if you get jump scared by that, my bad. Nightbane's Baby Teeth, it does a couple of different element attacks. I think it's like Fire, Earth, and Dark. Nightbane's Redemption, simple light spell. Charm is a charisma-based spell that costs energy. And there's a couple of other spells. They all do basically what they say they do. None of them are great, but some of them are okay. I use Evil Shadow and Arrows of Honor. Those are just normal ice and fire spells that do more damage or less damage based off of your alignment. Your alignment is neutral unless you do a bunch of quests. Pets. All of these pets, unfortunately, are pretty bad because they require charisma to attack, so they have a chance of not attacking every turn. These Misks, the only one you could consider using that's not like really bad is the Ring of the Shaded Grove, which boosts your dark pet damage. Not as good as other options, but on a new account, could possibly be useful. Now there's only a couple of other options of low-level shops. One of them is Vance's shop. Now Vance's shop, you have to click first this red light. Then you click on him. Who are you? What brought you here? Yes. Do you have stuff to buy? Look at Vance's stuff. His weapons, very weird shop. He's got level 40 to level 60 100 proc ranged weapons for water, earth, energy, or water, fire, energy, and wind. Everything else is Z token, don't buy it. He's got, so the wind weapon armor, flight armor, is actually a good triple compression light, wind, and ice armor at low levels. It also looks kind of weird and fun. But unless you're a low level account, like sub level 50, don't buy it. Shield, this is the only thing he has that scales to 150. It is a energy shield that also has some random secondary resistances. Could be useful. I wouldn't use it in most circumstances. And finally, he has the Scrambler Beacon / Scrambler Beam spell, which scrambles anything's resistances without a save, unless they're a light monster, or they have 0 light resistance. It also does raise their MRM by a little bit, so keep that in mind. But you can use this to cheese bosses that can't normally have their resistances scrambled. You can also use it on, say, something that is way higher level than you, like, say, the Nightbane boss or the Karnax boss. But again, you're only going to be doing that if you have some very specific circumstances, so I wouldn't normally recommend this. Now, as we leave the rip in the sky, I've got, that was the last shop I have. Now the only thing I have to show you are temporary items. So what are temporary items, you ask? Temporary items, you can get them from wars, you can get them from some NPCs, you can get them from a bunch of random situations, but I'm only going to be showing the ones you can get from either the Guardian Tower or wars that you can get to in relatively few clicks. So I compiled all of these random items you can get, which are somewhat useful and can cover different elements for you. So if you go to the Guardian Tower, and you have to be a Guardian to do all the ones I'm going to show you, but if you click on the horses, you can get a Horse Riding, Unicorn, Nightmare, Pegasus, and Black Dragon. So this is an Earth armor that replaces your no drop. This is a Light armor. This is a Fire armor. This is a... I think it's a Wind armor. Let me check. Yes, it's a Wind armor that replaces your no drop. Black Dragon is a Dark armor. And Sparky the Dragon is a simple Fire guest. Now, there's a couple of other things. If you click this, you get a Light guest that has a chance of doing damage and a small chance of healing you for a ton of HP. If you click in these armors, you get a Vampire Bat, which does dark damage and heals you for half the damage it deals. And that's pretty much it for the Guardian Tower. Now, this is sort of a niche use of wars, but if you go to Burning Solstice, Ominous, Burning Solstice, what you can do is you can go to the answer, and you have a couple of options. First, you have the guest list. Now, Galanoth does lots of damage to dragons, Artix does lots of damage to undead, Warlic does element-seeking damage for a slightly higher cost. And Cyrus and Robina are just normal. What you can also do at most wars is click on this chest and you will get something. So as you can see, Dragonslayer Twilly will now fight by your side. You can get Dragonslayer Twilly at a bunch of different wars. I recommend the answer because it's very quick to get to. So if you click this chest, you can get Dragonslayer Twilly. Dragonslayer Twilly has 3 modes. He has an earth attack that is void against dragons. He has a healing mode and a mana healing mode. That's pretty good for a lot of circumstances. If you don't have a healing guest, you can come here, grab Twilly for a quest, and go through it. Now, there are a couple of other temporary items that I want to show you. So one of them is in the Burning Solstice War Begets War, Umazen Uprising War, and you go to Umazen Civil War. You skip this, click this, you have a Rust Reaver. The Rust Reaver is a magic weapon that does earth damage and does 20% damage and element seeking to metallic or armored units. If you happen to be fighting a metallic or armored monster, use the Rust Reaver, and you're a mage. The guest list is pretty similar to everything. You can also use Hollow. Hollow's a normal guest. There's two other war items that are pretty useful. One you can find in the Dragonlorn Keep Last Watch War. And if you click this, you get the Tarnished Caliburn. And these chests are only available to Guardians. But the Tarnished Caliburn is a light weapon that does void damage to undead, or fake void, so it does void damage, but damage is cut in half. It also burns them and deals 20% extra damage. So now, I lied actually, there's 2 more items after that, so a couple of items from wars. If we go to Dragon Spine, and we click through the dialogue, and we scroll, we go to the Wyvern Rider War, skip the cutscene, you click this chest, you get the Draconic Blade. Now this is an ice weapon that gives you an ice spell while you're wielding it, which on its own, very useful. But it also does 20% bonus damage to dragons and does void damage divided by 2. So it can work on any dragon and does 20% bonus damage. Same with the spell. Does 20% bonus damage against dragons. Now finally, the last war item that I think is very useful. You can find it in the Going Kukoo War, and again, all of these war items I'm showing you, with the exception of the Ice Draconic Blade, can be found in several different wars. I'm just showing you the locations that I think are the most convenient. The Radiant Warhorse. The Radiant Warhorse is a triple compression FD armor. So as you can see, it compresses light, earth, and wind together. So you can use that for a lot of different monsters. And that is pretty much it in terms of temporary items that are convenient to get. So if you're missing something, if you're missing an element, if you want to change your no drop to something that is not neutral in the early game and you're a guardian, you can use the Guardian Tower, you can use the Radiant Warhorse, etc. If you need an ice weapon, you can use the Draconic Blade. If you need an earth weapon, you can use Rust Reaver. Light weapon, Tarnished Caliburn. So all of these are basically just gap fillers that I recommend and that you can use in a pinch. So that is pretty much it. I showed like a million shops, and I showed like several temporary items and how you can get some free guests from wars and free weapons and armors from wars. All of those locations I will have in a notepad in the description, if it fits. To be honest, it's a lot of words on the notepad, it might not fit. But hopefully it'll fit in the description. If not, I'll have a link to it or something. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope some of these shops are useful to you. I hope some of these temporary items are useful to you. I think they're especially good for an account starting out, so you can know all of the options you have on how to upgrade your gear to a modern standard. If you have any questions, if you think I missed any shops, please let me know in the comments. And really just thank you for watching. I had fun making this, doing the research to find all this niche gear you can get. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace and love.